Yeah, so a very good evening to all the people present. So I'm Sirish Chandra, so I'm a second generation MFD. My father's name is SP Dhananjaya, so some of the older MFDs in this room might be familiar with him. This is a 5-minute presentation, so it's not going to be exhaustive. So I'm just going to give you some, 3 to 4 ideas based on, my experience as a mutual fund distributor in the past 5 years. So it is going to be entirely geared around, what younger MFDs should be doing, and how you tackle, younger investors. So this is based on my experience of the last 5 years. So let's go ahead. So these are my credentials. So I'm actually from a computer science background. So I did my master's in computer science in the US. So I was working for a top tech company for 6 years. And then I'm actually a strong proponent of the FIRE movement. So I don't know if people have heard about FIRE. So financial independence and retire early. So I'm one of the early adopters. So I've adopted it from my first paycheck. I've adopted the principles of FIRE, saved and invested a good portion of my paycheck. I have done my CFP. So my dad's name is SP Dhananjaya, as I said. So I moved back in 2019. So I did my CFP in 2019. So I'm also a CFA level 3 candidate. So I'm taking my exam in Feb 2025. So a bit of a disclaimer, like some of the ideas, I share, it's just 3 to 4 ideas, like I'll run through them, but some of these ideas may, challenge the status quo. But this is not an exhaustive list. It's just like 3 to 4 ideas that I want to fit in. So it may challenge the status quo. It is something that I observed that works with the younger community, my own, peers and set. But the existing, MFDs, I request you to be tolerant to these ideas. So I'm going to act 50% like an MFD and 50% as an investor. The best position to make decisions for the investor is, to put yourself in the shoes of the investor himself or herself, and then take these, decisions. So I'm going to, do that. So it is absolutely critical that younger generation MFDs, are receptive to these ideas. So do we have young MFDs here, like people who are less than 30? Nice. So people who are, less than 35, maybe I'm 34. So nice. So the first point I would like to make is, are you brutally honest with your clients, right? So what do I mean by that? So do you explain to them where you stand in the financial, intermediary or advisor space, right? So you're a mutual fund distributor. There are various entities in this, environment, right? So there's a mutual fund distributor. There is an insurance agent. There is a banking channel, right? And there are fee-only, RIA planners, right? Fee-only planners. So do you clearly explain to your client where you fit in the equation, right? Because a lot of the times, the client doesn't know whom to approach for what, right? So as an MFD, I think it is, completely paramount that you explain to the client, this is what I offer. Because it, the initial relationship is built, it's the initial 1 to 3 years is all about building trust with your client. Right? So, you are not going to generate much revenue. It's just about building, based on my experience, the first 1 to 3 years, it's about building trust. Only after, they're confident about dealing with you, that, they're sure that you look after their best interests, the client is going to open up, give you a, bigger wallet share. So do you tell your client, discuss with your client the difference between regular and direct, right? So it is absolutely important that you communicate things like these, right? So do you keep silent, or, because it's better that you declare it in the first place. It breaks trust when, 2 or 3 years down the line, the client hears from someone else that what you're investing in is a, regular plan, and, you should be investing in direct plans. That kind of message passes around all the time, right, among the younger generation. So, it is absolutely paramount that you discuss these, points with them. And do you discuss the expense ratios of the schemes and portfolios, right? So these disclosures are extremely important in your practice. So what happens is with my peers, like if you are not very clear about this in the first conversation, right, and they figure this out, right, so they do what is called ghosting, right. They never pick up your phone call ever again. They don't, they just redeem their money and they just go away. So it is absolutely important that you set the expectations right, and you communicate all these items to your client in the first meeting. Do you set the right expectations? So at the end of the day, the goal of the investor is to beat the beat inflation, right? So we recommend active funds, that's fine, but there is an over obsession about beating the benchmark. So if it depends on the narrative that you are trying to create. So if you are talking about are you selling funds that will beat inflation and help the client achieve their goals, or are you trying to sell funds that achieve the maximum returns, right? So there is a big difference. So it is not always possible to sell the funds that achieve maximum returns, but it is definitely possible to beat inflation over the long term and help your clients achieve their financial goals, right? So same basically. And do you set the correct expectation with respect to what is exactly short term, medium term and long term? For you long term may be 5 years, but for someone else long term may be 7 years. Based on rolling returns analysis that I've done, I haven't shared the figures here, but the long term time horizon for me is like 7 years. So, and what is short term for you may actually be long term for the client. The client may think 3 years is a very long time to make money in the stock market and expect like 10% CAGR from their equity mutual funds, which is a very wrong expectation to set. So it is absolutely important that you and your client are on the same page with respect to what is short term, medium term and long term. And are you facilitating strategic or tactical investing or both, right? So I'll go into this in the next slide. So strategic investing is basically you're investing for the long-term goals, right? So the investment plan is centered around achieving the long-term goals of the client, like retirement, children's education, long-term. And tactical investing is more like, responding to market events, maximizing profit. So I think tactical investing is best left to, the fund managers, and strategic investing is what you should be doing. But maybe as you grow as a, in your job, in your role, and, you have a better sense of market, macros and anything, you may want to move to a tactical role. But I'm a strict proponent of, strategic allocation. And do you sell the idea of FIRE? So how many people actually are familiar with FIRE and market it to clients? Nice, right? So, this is something you cannot ignore. So if you want to reach out to the younger generation, you will have to sell FIRE. So I'll just quickly run through it. So the concept of traditional retirement is over. So if you are pitching a, retirement at 60 to someone from my generation, then they are not going to buy it, right? So the maximum retirement age that I agree upon with clients is like 50, and then I have noticed that clients who are very serious about achieving FIRE and all that, they pull it down to 45 and then 42, and I am confident that these candidates will actually retire at the age of 40, starting from age of 29 or 30. These guys are so serious about retiring early, right? So corporate jobs are no longer 9 to 5. So I worked for 6 years at Amazon Web Services. So that's a company I work for in Palo Alto, California. And I worked for 6 years, and the experience and time effort I have put into it is more like 10 to 12 years, right? So goals are changing. Like it's not like once upon a time you want to have a home, you want to get married, and that was like a standard template. Today people want to they want to travel the world. Right, they want to start their own business. So for this, they need time, right, and they need health, right? So the sooner they retire, the better for them to achieve these goals. Yeah, so work harder. So, and this sounds like a joke, but people are actually prepared to invest 50 to 75% of their paycheck. So I have a bunch of clients who are very serious about retiring at 40. Right? So if they earn like 1.25 lakhs, I know someone who invests like 80 to 90,000, of their paycheck, but they're very clear about retiring at 40, doing their own thing, right? Taking up a, side hustle and living a, relaxed life. And so are you open to selling index funds? So index funds are cheap, simple, and yield market returns. So while any country which moves from a developing to a developed economy, eventually the stock markets become more efficient, right? It's based on the efficient market hypothesis. And what happens is it is believed that fund management is also a risk, right? Fund managers may not be able to beat the market, right? So I'm not saying it is, we are there, right? 10 to 15 years from now, bulk of inflows may be into index funds, right? So, you might want to prepare yourself for this, right? So some ideas that I have is, do you sell a mix of active? So how many people actually here sell index funds? Nice. So it's, wonderful. So, some ideas is you can sell a mix of active and passive. Maybe you can blend a nifty, give a nifty large mid-cap 50-50 index along with a large mid-cap, active fund. And then maybe you can sit down with your client during reviews and, you can review like, hey, which one did better? So the active fund is, better than the benchmark, or you could do something like that, right? And you can also prioritize hybrid solutions, right? So there are no index fund equivalents right now. This is like, you can consider a temporary moat. But, if you are focusing on hybrid solutions, then, there are no index equivalents to this. Will there come a time when there are only passive-only MFDs? This is a very futuristic thought. So just like in insurance, there are insurance agents who sell only term insurance, right? So a similar idea, could that happen sometime in the future? Possible, 10, 15 years from now. So I'll just finish with the final slide. So it is also absolutely crucial that you educate yourself on taxation related to NRI investments, right? So mutual funds are in a very tricky space. So you have different countries have different rules, and you have comprehensive agreements that are signed with India. So in this link, so there is this link from the income tax portal where you can just go and learn on the different comprehensive agreements, and there'll be an article, typically article 13 or 14, which talks about capital gains. So it's best to educate yourself on this. Obviously you're not going to be the final authority on this, but it helps to advise your give some ideas to your client, so that it builds trust. So these are some taxation. So US is very taxation unfriendly to non-domiciled, US domiciled, funds. So UK has a certain rule. European countries, they vary on a tax by, case by case basis. So, and the most friendly countries are, probably the Middle East, Singapore and Malaysia in my experience. So, so that's all I have today. So I'll just run through something. Thank you.
To give a memento to Mr. Sirish. One question he put, just I wanted to ask to the audience, will there be only a passive only MFDs of 10 years from now? Percentage? Out of 100, what will be the percentage? Just a guess.